There needs to be drastic change. We need drastic action.
Okay, noted policy expert Freely the Banana Girl, what do you suggest?
What I propose is that people have a test. They need a license, a permit before they procreate, before they have children. They need to pass a test. And that men get vasectomies.
I don't want to have to think about what the Banana Girl says. Please don't make me. Oh, all right. Just play the fucking music. As silly as it may seem to bother responding to Banana Girl here, this is a sentiment I've seen expressed elsewhere, so let's go ahead and examine it. Banana Girl, why exactly do you think we need this kind of massive intrusion into the lives of other human beings?
The Amazon, which is a lungs to our planet, which is a lungs for us, it's a major source of oxygen. It's an amazing, vital place that we need to actually protect, not destroy. But we've been destroying it at such an alarming rate.
Activists have been sounding alarm bells about the deforestation of the Amazon rainforest for as long as I've been alive. Back in the 90s, we were told that without drastic action, the rainforests were going to disappear within 10 years. And they're still there. In fact, the rate at which they're alleged to be being destroyed has been going up. Environmentalists always throw around numbers like these.
Every single minute of the day, we have destroyed 50 football fields of lush virgin rainforest from the Amazon.
Where do these numbers actually come from? I did some Googling, and it's actually really difficult to find information on how these estimates are compiled. In fact, I only found one article in Scientific American that even mentioned the fact that these are extremely rough estimates. All they said was, pinning down exact numbers is nearly impossible. I did notice that in 1996, researchers Roger Sejo and Marion Clausen took a look at some of the data these estimates are derived from in a paper called Global Forests Revisited. They said information about the tropical moist forest is relatively scant. What information we do have comes from anecdotal evidence provided by isolated investigations at single times and places, not from systematic studies conducted over large areas and lengths of time. In 1993, David Skoll and Compton Tucker used satellite imagery to compare Amazon forestation from 1978 to 1988. They came up with a number of 3.7 million acres per year. At that time, the number being thrown around by activists was 28 million acres per year. Obviously, these fact-check numbers are ancient, but it's all I could find. Is anyone out there doing similar fact-checking today? I can't definitively debunk these numbers, but I've shed a reasonable doubt on them. Environmentalist alarmists have a history of exaggerating the hell out of their statistics. More on that later. Meanwhile, there was a study at the University of Reading that showed that the Amazon rainforest is only about 2,000 years old, and before that, it was a grassland. In spite of this, life survived and indeed thrived on Earth. If the rainforest is ever destroyed, by man-made or natural processes, life will go on. Also, who is this we she keeps talking about? We aren't doing anything. I haven't destroyed any rainforest today, have you? The rainforest is a resource that belongs to the people of Brazil. It's their land. It doesn't belong to Banana Girl, and she has no right to tell Brazilians what to do with it. Nothing here justifies forcibly sterilizing all men. Sorry, what else you got?
And then we've got the bee population, which is declining, and without the bees, we don't have food.
The bee population has taken a hit, and that is a genuine potential problem for the future. But can anyone demonstrate that a rise in the human population is what's killing the bees? The Department of Agriculture says the biggest culprit is a mite called Varroa destructor. They call it the single most detrimental pest to honeybees. They also cite viruses and a bacterial disease called European foul brood. Amusingly, The paper does note that pesticide exposure is theoretically a primary concern, but they haven't done the research yet to actually figure out the actual field-relevant pesticide exposure bees receive and the effects of pervasive exposure to multiple pesticides on bee health. So then, how do you know it's a primary concern? We've been using pesticides since long before the recent bee population problems began in 2006. An inverse correlation between bee population and human population cannot be demonstrated.
We've got 150 million orphans.
Where did that number come from? You know what? I'm too tired and frustrated to follow more dubious statistics down the rabbit hole. So let's accept 150 million as a relatively accurate number.
150 million.
Now, listen carefully to the way she says that.
150 million.
The way she's stressing those syllables is very interesting, isn't it? Consciously or unconsciously, Banana Girl is trying to manipulate your emotions. She's got a big, scary-sounding number, and she's going to beat you with it until you're just as emotional about it as she is. Let's shine the sobering light of logic on this big, scary number. If the 150 million figure is accurate, that's 0.02% of the population of the world. Don't get me wrong, every single one of those orphans is a tragedy, but any problem that affects only 0.02% of the population isn't worth sterilizing anybody for. 0.02%! It just doesn't have the same ring to it, does it? She goes on to state the numbers for the United States specifically.
In the United States, over 100,000 children are orphaned.
That's 0.0003% of the US population. 0.0003%! And Banana Girl isn't out there trying to help these orphans. She's trying to neuter every young boy on the planet. Banana Girl's premises are all deeply flawed individually, and put together, they certainly don't support her conclusion that all men should be forcibly sterilized. What a vile assertion. How would you enforce this? If you take a moment to think about what she's saying, Banana Girl is advocating the creation of a global totalitarian organization, no doubt funded by taxation, which would kidnap young boys and force a painful, intrusive surgery on them. Then, if they decide to have children of their own, they would have to grovel on their hands and knees for permission from this vast bureaucracy. If you were to resist and try to hide and protect your children from this monstrous entity, what punishment would she exact against you? Would she send the SWAT teams to your house in the middle of the night to shoot your dogs, haul you off to a horrific federal rape dungeon, and then drag your son kicking and screaming to a prison hospital for involuntary surgery? Quite frankly, that's why we have a Second Amendment in the United States. Miss Banana here has decided that she's better than you.
So today's video, why I'm superior to you.
She thinks she's smarter than you. She thinks that because she has a goofy, unnatural diet and a handful of phony baloney statistics, a government entity should be created that will use the violence of the state to shove her lifestyle down your throat whether you like it or not. As cute and entertaining as she seems on the surface, Freely the Banana Girl is evil, and if she ever got the reins of power, she would create a despicable, immoral, immensely destructive dystopia. Luckily, she's just a sociopath with a YouTube channel. But this is a chilling picture of how statism operates nonetheless. Start with overblown premises, and end up with encroachment on human freedom. I hope you don't think this is too outlandish to be worth taking seriously. It has happened before. For example, Rachel Carson made a name for herself by slandering DDT, a life-saving chemical which almost wiped out malaria by safely killing mosquitoes. Carson's book, Silent Spring, claimed that birds exposed to DDT had significantly lower birth rates than control birds with no DDT exposure. This was, at best, a wild exaggeration. The study by DeWitt actually said that quail who were fed 200 parts per million of DDT in all their food throughout the breeding season hatched 80% of their eggs, compared with the control birds, which hatched 83.9% of their eggs. That's not really a significant difference from one study, and even if that massive honkin' 3.9% number managed to stand the test of further experimentation, I don't really think that's worth even one additional malaria death per year. Carson also omitted mention of DeWitt's report that control pheasants hatched only 57% of their eggs, while those that were fed high levels of DDT in all their food for an entire year hatched more than 80% of their eggs. Seems to me like we need to get these pheasants on some DDT supplements. Stat! As a result of the emotional frenzy inspired by Silent Spring, DDT was ultimately banned, and now over 1 million people die of malaria every year. Rachel Carson and the environmental alarmists who destroyed DDT are among the greatest mass murderers who ever lived. And yet, she's still celebrated as a hero. She was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which is nauseating. As tempting as it would be to mock and dismiss Banana Girl, she needs to be taken seriously. Critical thinking needs to be applied to her assertions and any form of alarmism that leads to more encroachment on freedom. You know, like the war on drugs, the war on terror, the war on poverty, the growing federalization of education, the move to federalize the police, global warming, forced vaccinations.